Afghanistan continues. It continues to drag on. Our last podcast that we did on Afghanistan was before a lot of the new developments. So today, one of the big questions I think that should be on everybody's mind, if you're a Christian, if you're a believer, conservative, or whatever, the big question should be how to respond to this kind of stuff. You know, not to be cliche, but what would Jesus do kind of thing.
That seems like a big question, like for me, like what in this political climate, would he just go on and evangelize and say, y'all don't need to worry about this? Or would he flip out?
Well, that is the question.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And we're going to dive into that. We'll try to dive into those. But to recap again what's going on, the situation in Afghanistan. I've heard a lot of people weigh in on Afghanistan, and one of the things I've heard them say is, remember, don't be so harsh or so critical on this administration on how this was handled, because it's not their fault that the soldiers are over there to begin with. A lot of people are saying it wasn't Obama or Biden or even Trump that put the soldiers over there to begin with. You know, this happened during Bush's administration. Obviously, my thought, as what I would consider at least a quasi-patriot, is that this happened during Bush's administration as a direct response to 9/11, as a direct response to an act of terror when the Twin Towers were bombed and over 3,000 Americans were killed. I assume that since we went in October, it was due to that act of terror. I still believe that that's true, that that's the case, you know, that we were over there because of that act of terror. Now, whether you believe they had inside help, whether you believe it was just an excuse to get us over there or whatever you want to call it, at the end of the day, that's why we went.
Isn't everybody critical of the rollout plan? And that, what does that have to do with George Bush? Like,
well, so I think what people are saying now is that we should go easy on this administration because we should never have had troops over there to begin with. There was one vote back in 2001. There was one vote, one senator or congressperson, one representative voted for us to not go to Afghanistan. One person voted for us to stay. And everybody else almost unanimously voted for us to go over there. And people are saying how that one vote, don't be afraid to speak your voice because that one vote mattered. You had it right. We never should have been over there. I think it's hard to say. In my opinion, as a Christian and as a conservative, it's hard to say that we should never have went over there.
That feels like such like to say that you say that from such a point of privilege, having freedom, having this nice American life, and people are over there in this. Like, the thing is, man, here, I'm about to go off. So, like, if you have your average person that is against this, is living a comfortable American life, saying, oh, like, let them, like, because they think in their mind that the people in Afghanistan are like them. They're, you know, they're chilling at home with mom, you know, they're 30 something years old, and I'm joking, but like that like they deal with actual oppression, so to have American troops there feels like it's a good thing. Right,
but the issue people have is when you start talking about another culture around the world, like when you start talking about Islamic culture or traditional Islamic culture or Sunni Islamic culture that you see in Saudi Arabia and Afghanistan, when you start talking about them and saying things like, well, you don't understand, they don't have the same values we do, they twist it around and make it sound like you're being Western exceptionalism.
We're taking out murderers who blow people up. I think the culture can take a backseat.
What they say is that, well, you just believe in American exceptionalism.
No, I believe in blowing up bad guys.
Well, I
would prefer to not murder bad guys.
You believe that different cultures believe different things and have different values. That not every culture is the same.
I think everybody wants to survive, and if American troops can help, I just think it's that easy.
Yeah, well, and I think the common misconception is that, like you have said over and over and over, everybody's pretty much good. We all pretty much believe the same things. That's not the case if you are the type of person who subscribes to Sharia law, like we've talked about on the show before. just as a recap, homosexuality is not legal by Sharia law.
Yeah, but don't everybody over there. What about all the people that were running away, trying to get on the plane when we were pulling out of Afghanistan? Was everybody rejoicing that America was gone and the Taliban are in charge again? Like, it's just easy. You just look at the news,
Dude,
man.
so
like, jump out of the Ferrari.
I understand when people say it's not our job to police the world. I understand, but then I think compassionately, if you really believe what you're saying when you say, hey man, equal rights, equal treatment, men and women, equal rights, transgender, LGBTQ rights, all these things, if you believe that,
Yep.
I find it difficult to reconcile that with the fact that there is a culture, there is a growing culture in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia, in Afghanistan, with the more traditional, like Sunni Muslim population that, according to Sharia law, they do not value women's rights like we do. They do not value the LGBTQ community. In fact, they make it illegal to pursue those types of relationships.
Why shouldn't we police the world if we have a pretty solid, good country?
But then you're an American exceptionalist. You just believe in American exceptionalism.
What does that mean?
When that's the argument
that
people
means
say,
we're better. So we
you
don't
essentially just think that, Joel, because you believe America's just better.
No, because I don't see people being blown up all over where we're at.
But the facts don't matter, Joel. Like, in reality, you're just brainwashed to think that America's better, when in reality, Afghanistan would have been better off if we'd have left them alone. Afghan women would have been better off left alone. Afghan LGBTQ
but all
members.
the things that this persona stands for is being violated if we don't go there.
Right, and this again is the rub of, if you're a Christian, how do you respond in this situation? Because think about it like this: like, we admit way back in the day, the Crusades, in the year 1100ish, led by Pope Innocent. The Crusades, we understand, it was wrong. It was misinterpretation of Scripture.
Yeah.
They can't force people to convert or die by the sword to be Christians. Like, that's anti-Jesus. So then people would equate what we're doing in Afghanistan and those places, equate that to, like, the Crusades.
But we're not killing a whole nation of people and saying convert or die. We're going after a specific terror group. And I feel like it's like you and I, once you bring the facts into this, I don't know what they say to that.
Well, what I have heard is a lot of deflection. You go, if I say, well, they killed 3,000 people in 9/11, what should be the adequate response to that? A lot of people will then pick and choose their conspiracy theories, interestingly enough, and they'll say things like, well, we're not even sure. That's what they tell you, is that was Taliban or that was Al-Qaeda, but in reality, who knows? It probably was an inside job just for us to go to war. And so then I'm like, oh, so you will pick and choose which conspiracy theories that you are down with.
There could be dragons in Indiana that fly over and burn people up, but I can't not prove that. There could be.
You're not wrong. That's quite possible.
I just think if I'm outside, if I'm in here and I see some neighborhood kid getting beaten up outside, that's not happening right now, and I just say, well, it's not my job to police them, it's the parents' job. That feels like I'm letting some kid.
What's the old adage? The only thing for good men to do, for evil to triumph, is nothing at all.
Yeah.
That's the old adage, I think.
Well, that feels like I feel like the media, the left media has if they had been advertising hardcore that Joe Biden did a terrible job here and we should be in Afghanistan, everybody on the left would be like, yeah, we should have stayed there, and social justice, and we've just pulled out of there, and now all the women are going to be in trouble. But if the left media doesn't market, so all the people that I know on the left, they don't see the Facebook article with the clickbait, they don't get outraged.
Well,
I don't think the left media has. I think they've just told them to be, to think that we.
Several things we do know that are happening, like currently. We pulled out all of our troops before we got all American civilians out.
Yeah.
We have now gotten tens of thousands of Afghan nationals. We've extradited them in planes over to the U.S., tens of thousands of Afghan nationals, and we still have hundreds of American citizens in Afghanistan.
I just think it's when you, I guess we're getting down to this statement of like, well, just be easy on the Biden administration. We're just mad about the rollout plan. It doesn't matter who started it. Whoever made up this rollout plan it's not a.
I will say, if their goal was to, he talked about unity at the start of his platform was unity, and up until this point, it's been unity on conformity, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't unity like let's latch arms and work together. It was, I'm gonna break world records for the most executive orders in the first few days, which he did. He had the record for the most executive orders without even consulting the other side of the aisle, not even caring about the other side of the aisle. It very much seemed like unity based on conformity, get in or get out. And
based on a bunch of tweets.
Yeah.
If we're being honest, like Donald Trump's tweets.
Yeah. One thing that has happened through Afghanistan is if they wanted unity, they got it. Now the majority of the American public think that Joe Biden is incompetent, think that he shouldn't be, he's a bad leader. Because let's get one thing clear for everyone who says the soldiers shouldn't have been over there to begin with. Those 13 Marines ages 20 to 31, basically just starting their lives, the ones that died in the tragic bombing in Kabul, they came back. Biden had sent them back. They were part of the Marines that went back to help get people out. They were not the original ones. They weren't sent there by Trump or Bush or anybody else. They were sent there by Biden because he had poorly executed the exit strategy.
I just think it's just odd that, like, on election day, I just remember people just having a romance novel on Facebook over Joe Biden. People I know, like, we get Joe Biden and we get Jill Biden and we're just like so excited. And like, they haven't posted anything about this.
Well, I think I feel like people are having a gut check, and they're realizing that no political leaders are these shining white knights.
And I feel like we know this.
I know, yeah, we know this.
The right knows this, I feel like.
We've talked about this. But in the Republican Party, do I find it a gross error in judgment that education, that reforming our education system is not at the top of everyone in the Republican Party's view? Like that, that's low on the totem pole. Yeah. Dude, how many of us use advanced calculus in daily life? You don't. You know what you do use every single day? Social media, relationships, connections, networking. Use all those things. Why do we still have calculus in high school and not a session on social media and networking or the internet? Why don't you have that class? Why do you got to go to specify like a specific kind of tech school to get that kind of education? Life has changed in the past 50 years in a dramatic way, and our education hasn't. So it's like the fact that that's not top tier on the Republicans' totem pole of things that they value is a misguided thing to me. The fact that education on the importance of dual parent families is not top tier priority, like the importance of keeping your family together for the development of the kids, that's a problem to me. It should be those things should be just as significant as free enterprise, as free market economies, and as anti-abortion laws. Those things should be just as significant to me. Those are things that you actually find. Maybe not the keeping the family together, education on that, but school reform, you find that more on the left. You find that more in that side of the argument. And I'm willing to admit that there are screw-ups and issues in the party that I'm aligned with that we need to work to make change. But it seems like on the other side, it's like they can make no mistakes.
Yeah,
and this is clearly a huge mistake.
It's like a religion. It feels like their Jesus. Christians that I know, it was like their Jesus was Joe Biden. And I'm like, dude, we're still on Earth. Like, it's bad here. Like, what do you like? How is this going to change your daily life? It didn't.
I would say, if you're a Christian on either side of the aisle, if you're a Christian, I would think a good gut check for you would be if you're on the left or right, if you're more passionate about converting people to the ideologies of your political party versus converting people to the ideology of Christ converting people to the knowledge of Christ, to the truth of God. If you're more passionate about your political alignment than you are that, you need to take a step back and question your values and question your Christianity and question, in my opinion, get your morals back in line. And that's something I deal with because I'd love to get on the podcast. It's a politically oriented podcast. I'd love to get on here and just nonstop say my way or the highway, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, my hope is that someone begins to think outside themselves and begins to think about, man, maybe I need to pursue God. I need to know what Jesus would do in this situation. That should be my overarching goal in everything I do. So if you're on the left or right and you're more passionate about converting people to see your way in politics, my advice to you would be gut check. Gut check.
There's no grace in politics.
Oh, no.
There's no grace in politics. And that's why I do the Christian music thing and I like the Christian entertainment thing, is because there's like this thread even in church, man. As I've rolled back into church this year as a worship leader, the issues that we have there are filled with grace and mercy. That is not how it is when you go to renew your driver's license. Mm-hmm. That's like that, like it's the religion of government, which I would argue is the religion of the left, is that stuff. That's their church, man, and it's I don't like it. It's uncomfortable, and they don't like it.
Man, I don't know.
Hillary Clinton's their Joel Osteen or whatever.
Hillary Olstein,
dude. That's basic. Like, I mean,
Hillary
think about
Olstein.
it, man.
Oh, Joel and Cliff will not gospel. It's pretty obvious, blatantly obvious now, when you've got a president who flat out, I don't know if you've seen the clip, where he finishes his statement about Afghanistan and then he says, now I was instructed, the first person I was instructed to call upon was blah, blah, blah.
Ladies and gentlemen, they gave me a list here. The first person I was instructed to call on was Kelly O'Donnell of NBC.
If you can't trust your president to call on a reporter for a question after a press conference, he can't be running the country. You're not trusting him with nuclear codes at that point.
Why is Joe Biden better than Donald Trump?
That's a good question. Leave in the comments what is better under Joe Biden than it was under Trump, and why is he better than Trump?
Because Donald Trump is a racist and he's a sexist.
He might be. Deep down, he might be, but he didn't act like that as a president.
I told myself I wasn't going to be a jerk on this podcast.
What if this is the plan all along? Because you saw what happened with Como, right, with New York.
Yeah.
13,000 dead elderly people in those long-term care homes, where he put COVID patients in those long-term care facilities, and 13,000 elderly people died. No one cared about that. That was swept under the rug. But then these sexual misconduct allegations come out on him, and they found out to be true. And now and then he has this big reveal, and he says, I've always been a servant for the people, and the way I can best serve the people now is by stepping down and letting so-and-so. He gets to leave gracefully, right? What if this has been the play all along? Right now, most of the U.S. is united around the fact that Joe Biden's probably not the best president. So what if, especially after Afghanistan, so what if the whole play is Joe Biden in a week before he gets impeached or before all this hoopla begins to unfold, Joe Biden says, I made some terrible errors. I'm not the best president for this, so I decide to step down, and I'm going to let Kamala Harris. The United States is in great hands. Kamala Harris is going to be Vice President Harris is going to be the best president we've ever had. She has my full endorsement and support. What if this was the plan the whole time?
That sounds very realistic, but what also sounds realistic for every single person on the left is to just say, it's not a big deal. Like the people that you've probably had arguments with. And then they're going to say, look, go easy on the Biden administration. And then they just forget about it because there's no standard of there's no standard for the left, in my opinion. It's just emotional reaction. It's immediate emotional reactions.
Well,
That's what the left is to me. It's an immediate emotional reaction.
I will say
problem.
it does put Republicans in a bind, in a difficult position, because I'm not willing to say that they would rather have a Harris administration. But I'm not so confident that you don't already have a Harris-Pelosi administration. When your president has to be instructed which reporter to call upon, he's probably, in reality, not making the big decisions. He's not the one making the big plays. It's Harris or Pelosi or somebody else is making the big decisions already. So you're kind of already in a Harris-Pelosi administration, in my opinion. So it puts Republicans in a position where if they can get Biden impeached, or if they can get it where he's deemed incompetent or he steps down or whatever, maybe they feel like in the primaries next year they have a bunch of momentum to get a lot of the seats on their side of the aisle, to get a lot of red votes. Maybe they feel like that's the best thing. I mean, I don't know. This whole part is complete speculation, but mark my words, if he steps down after this and Harris comes in as President Harris, maybe there's some credibility to some of the stuff that we're spouting off on the regular here. Maybe. Just saying.
I don't care because Donald Trump's a racist. He's a racist.
You know, like I said, he might, behind closed doors, he might very well be a racist. I don't know.
Don't at all.
But his policies don't seem racist. They don't seem sexist.
There's nothing in the past 4 years that remotely came close to this whole.
Yeah.
The only thing you ever heard was, "Can you believe what he said?" In that voice every time.
And here, okay, so I always want to do this. I always want to go back to.
Yeah.
I don't think the Republican Party is the party of Christians or the party of Jesus. It's not. Jesus. The beautiful thing about Christianity is that you can do Christianity outside of politics. Christianity actually wrote about separation of church and state before we had separation of church and state 200 years ago. You know, like they were basically, Jesus says, give to Caesar what is Caesar, give to God what is God's. That's separation of church and state. Yeah. You can be under a ruling authority that is anti-Christian and still be a Christian, which is great. So the question now is how do you respond as a Christian? You know, like what is the most appropriate measure?
Okay, so this is a little odd, but for me, it's almost like stop talking about stop talking about the problem and just go tell people about Jesus and that hope, which feels odd because of what I'm doing now, which is basically saying the left is something I don't agree with at all. But well, I don't know.
I would say remember what's going on and let that determine your response. What's going on is people are dying. You've had 13 Marines, young Marines who died, innocent women and children, Afghans who died. You've got people dislocated, American citizens behind what we consider enemy lines. The Taliban has chanted death to America. So if you're an American citizen in Afghanistan, Taliban-controlled Afghanistan, you're behind enemy lines. This is all happening. I would never smile about something like that. I would never grin smugly about something like that. So you have an opportunity to say, I told you so, to your more progressive, liberal friends, or you have an opportunity to say, hey, what we're going through right now is a tragedy. What we're going through right now is totally counter to Jesus. Is totally just evil. It's rough. It's hard. People are suffering. Families are suffering. Families who lost mothers and fathers who lost 22, 21-year-old children who went to the military. I call them children because I'm 37 years old. They lost 22-year-old men and women, 25-year-old men and women, and they're suffering. They're grieving. It's an opportunity to lock arms with your liberal friends, your left-leaning friends, and say, hey, we realize that we're in a rough spot right now. If you can just get with us and say, yes, we're in a rough spot right now. Let's pray through. Let's be what we need to be. Let's lift up each other. Let's do what we can to help support the burdens of other people. That's what you need to do right now. I feel like that's the Christian response. Is just like, hey, I'm locking arms with you in the fact that what's going on right now is awful, is a tragedy. I'm not even gonna pretend that I'm excited about the fact that the president you voted for is screwing up. I'm not even gonna pretend that, because I'm not happy about that. I'm not happy that 13 Marines died and a bunch of innocent Afghans died. I'm not happy about that. So what I can be instead is say, hey, we're in an awful situation. I'll pray with you. What do you need? What do you need to get through this? How can we uplift you? How can we be helpful? I think that's the Christian response. It doesn't even matter if they look at you and say, well, you can be helpful by getting vaccinated. If that's what they say, you can say, well, I'm not going to do that, but what else? If you're an anti-vaxxer. If you're not an anti-vaxxer, you pray about it, do the research, and you make your own decision. But I mean, even if their response is not what you want, if their response is hateful and be like, it would have been worse under Trump, if that's what they say, I feel like the Christian way about it is to be like, well, you know, even if that's the case, even if you think I'm stupid, how can I help you? You know, how can I make my immediate surroundings a better place? You know, what can I do in my community that helps people through this tragedy? I mean, I know right now schools are closing. Kids are going to be dislocated again. You know, the county that's right adjacent to mine, 10, 15 minutes down the road, they're closing this week. They're closed. They got 500 quarantined kids and 70 positive cases of COVID. So they're closed down. This is in communities where mask wearing is enforced. I'll get on record for saying I tell my children to go with the mask underneath their nose, and if they have a problem, I will gladly go talk to the principal about it. That's who I am, because it clearly didn't work in Rockcastle County having masks, and they're shut down.
Cliff, I want to make sure people are comfortable. I saw this meme on Facebook
I will say,
that's like if everybody wants you to wear a diaper in public. It makes me feel comfortable for people to wear a diaper. Well, why wouldn't you put the diaper on? It makes people feel comfortable. Just put it over your pants.
The next time it's raining, make sure you've got your umbrella out, because if you don't have your umbrella out, even if I'm wearing mine, I'm going to get soaked. Dude, we got to talk about this. We've got to talk about this. Have you seen, this is current. It's not gospel with Cliff and Joel. Have you seen the video of the teacher that she's now, I think, on waivers, like she's facing disciplinary action?
Yes, I have.
The one where her kids, they're saying the national anthem?
Wait, no. I saw the one where she was calling everyone an idiot, and she was like, and if you support Donald Trump, then just get out.
So this teacher posts a video. She says, so in my class,
that's my 23-year-old.
She's in a private school.
Yep.
She's in a private school. She's teaching in a private school. She's like, in my class, during the morning announcements, they still do the national anthem. And I allow my kids to do whatever they want. They can stand, they can not stand, they can say it, they can not say it. They can put their hand on their heart, whatever. She goes, I allow them to do whatever they want. So all the kids decided to stand for the national anthem. She goes, which I'm fine with. But then, and she's snickering when she says this, but then one kid says, do we have an American flag at all in the classroom? She goes, well, no, I used to have one, but I took it down. And she looks at the camera and she says, because honestly, it made me uncomfortable. And she goes, and I took it down. And she goes, and I'm not sure.
Well, I hope you like your freedom.
And she says, I don't know where I stored it. And then he says, but you know, it'd be nice to have something to look at. Right now, we're just standing looking at nothing while we pledge allegiance. And he said, it'd be nice to have something to look at, a flag to look at. She goes, well, I told him I'll take care of it. I'll find it. It's in storage somewhere. And she goes, no way, I'm not gonna. You know, she was like looking at the camera like, yeah, right. I'm not gonna find the flag for this kid. But then she looks at the kid and she says, I do have, there is a flag in the classroom that you can pledge allegiance to if you want.
Well, let me guess.
And he goes, what, that one? You want to take a guess?
Is it the BLM flag?
It's the pride flag. She had the pride flag on the wall. And she goes, yeah, you can pledge allegiance to that.
You know who doesn't have the pride flag up? Afghanistan and the Taliban. I just marked the audio 1, 2, 3. Which the left is against. They're against us going there. Well, we shouldn't be there. You like pride, right? We want to fight for rights of all. Well, then go to Afghanistan.
How about an entire nation controlled by
I just came undone.
How about an entire nation controlled by a regime that will give you 450 lashes if you're a gay man who tries to arrange a date with another gay man?
We shouldn't police the world.
Dude,
Joe Biden's such a good man.
I cannot believe.
Just so everyone knows, it's my 23-year-old social justice warrior liberal voice. That's what it is.
Whatever side of the aisle you're on, if you see yourself advocating for your political party's ideology more then you are advocating for the ideology of Jesus, for the values of God. You need to seriously realign your priorities, seriously reevaluate, restructure, recenter, because you cannot call yourself a Christian and expect that to be a believable thing if there's so many other things that you value more than Christianity, more than Jesus' way of life, more than seeing that everybody else gets saved. What is it that C.S. Lewis said? It's either Christianity is either the most important thing that there is, or it's completely insignificant. It's wrong, and it's completely insignificant. If Christianity's wrong and Jesus isn't the Son of God, then it has no bearing. It's completely insignificant. If it is right, it is the most important thing there is. Nothing else matters as much. What it cannot be is mildly important, somewhat important. I agree with that. So if you're living your life today on left or right, like Christianity is just kind of important. If you think about people who see you on the daily and would say, Christianity is just one of the building blocks of what makes this person who they are. They're one of the priorities. If that's how you're living your life, reevaluate, because nothing's more important. That's it.
Agreed.
That and everybody Wang Chung tonight. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you for watching if you're on YouTube. Thank you for watching. Feel free to click like, comment, and subscribe. Feel free to write a nasty comment. Just don't use profanity. I will block you. Feel free to write a complimentary comment. Share with your friends. And tune in next time and keep being awesome, because that's how he made you.